Welcome to our webinar. How to win chargeback disputes. In situations where merchants are faced with chargebacks, merchants always have the right to dispute chargebacks presented against them. They can do this through verifying that the transaction was legitimate by providing the necessary evidence to their relevant acquiring banks. However, this process can be very time-consuming and can take months to resolve. Basically, chargeback disputes arise when a cardholder contacts their issuing bank to file a dispute on a charge. Focusing on the merchant's end, when informed of the chargeback from the acquiring bank, merchants are given roughly 7 to 10 days to respond to the chargeback. Merchants can either accept the chargeback and lose the cost of the chargeback to the cardholder, or dispute the chargeback and submit relevant forms and supporting evidence to their acquiring bank. The acquiring bank will then pass the merchant's returned forms and submitted evidence back to the cardholder's issuing bank. At this point, the acquiring bank also posts temporary funds to the merchant's account. Chargeback dispute may be the only way for merchants to regain lost funds or confront unacceptable customer behavior. Generally, a positive outcome from a chargeback representment is only possible if executed properly. Card associations reported chargeback win rates for merchants are roughly only 22% of all disputes. It is not easy to win a chargeback, but here are some tips for merchants to increase their likelihood of winning. Firstly, merchants should understand the process by knowing the requirements, standards, and deadlines of the process. Maintain accurate records and present as much evidence to the bank or payment service provider as they can. It is important for merchants to recognize reasons for chargeback, as it will help them to respond accordingly to situations and be more aware of chargebacks in the future. Some of the common reasons for chargeback include goods or services not rendered, the transaction is unauthorized, the transaction is a duplicate processing, or the merchandise is defective or not as described, and so on. When merchants decide to dispute a chargeback, they are required to provide different supporting documents depending on the nature of the chargeback. Some of the general documents that may be required for a chargeback case include a confirmation of delivery, a sales or transaction receipt with detailed product description, matching billing and shipping address, or any communication records with the customer if available. Some documents might be required for more specific chargeback cases. For example, for physical products, documents may include a signed acknowledgement receipt, shipping address, delivery date, shipping document, or tracking number and carrier. For offline services, merchants likely need to provide a signed acknowledgement receipt, date of service, contract, or other documents showing the customer has participated in the service. For online products or services, merchants can provide server logs, buyer IP address, or download history that can prove the customer has used the digital product. Merchants should generally avoid a second round of chargeback dispute, as it relates to a high cost and is time-consuming during the second round. If merchants lose the dispute, the chargeback fee can be as high as $500 to $900 and can take between 10 to 45 days to process. Merchants should also learn to accept legitimate complaints, because disputing chargebacks that were in fact reasonable might end up hurting their reputation and customer loyalty. Every online merchant encounters chargeback limits set by card associations, banks, and payment companies that merchants should not exceed. The standard chargeback threshold for Visa is 0.9% and MasterCard is 1% of total transaction volume. Some payment service providers or banks might employ an even stricter chargeback limit, such as 0.75%. Merchants face a possible account suspension or termination if chargebacks exceed these limits. Therefore, merchants should pay close attention to all chargeback limits and restrictions. Accra is a service provider offering affordable payment gateway service. We can approve your merchant account in less than 24 hours. Contact us if you are interested in knowing more.